Hi, Shamara. It looks like your audio isn't quite connected, so I'm just waiting for that. Let me know when you can hear me. There we go. It looks like your audio is connected now. Can you hear me now?
I can. Yes.
Excellent. I'm gonna turn you up a little bit. How's it going? Did you guys have a good Halloween?
We did. We actually had a really good Halloween.
Oh, I'm so glad. Did you dress up? Yeah, what did you dress up as?
We were Michael Jackson.
Oh, that's so fun. What a fun costume. That's
Yeah.
awesome. I love it. I did not dress up this year, but I did have fun. I went to dinner with friends and we had movie night and we watched Harry Potter. So, like, not too scary, but still like magical and, still like kind of spooky themed,
We went
so.
to Harry Potter Forbidden Forest on Saturday. Have you been
Ooh,
there?
I have not. That sounds really fun though.
It was amazing. It's actually outdoors. It's a trail. It's
Oh,
like
cool.
we walk for like a mile maybe. But
Nice.
it is so well done. It's amazing.
Oh, that's so cool. That sounds like a really enjoyable time. Yeah, I normally dress up every year. I didn't end up this year. But I think my last few, I was a Minion, I was Minnie Mouse, I was a Scarecrow, I was Patsy Cline. So I've been a lot of different things. So it is really fun. I don't know, like
This year
life
you didn't
got
have
away
it.
from me and I just was like, I didn't end up doing it, but I do have costumes for my dogs. So I did do that.
I saw some cute costumes for dogs, like the one where it's like
Oh,
the cowboy on the back with the
yeah. Oh, like riding them? That's really
that's
cute. That's really fun. Yeah. My Daisy has an alligator costume. I've got a Pikachu costume for my boy Scotty. And then trying to remember what they've been in the past, but they've been a bunch of different things. So a bunny rabbit. Daisy was a pink bunny one year. They like the like warm fuzzy ones. Scotty was a basketball player one year, so he's
Scotty
wearing a
Pippen.
jersey, like a football jersey.
That's
So
very
yeah,
cute.
they've had some fun ones. I think Daisy's favorite is the alligator because it's just so soft and warm and fuzzy. And she just like was like, like cozy in there. She gets cold this time of year, so
What kind of dog is she?
she is a Maltese mix. So she's itty bitty and basically just acts like a cat in a tiny dog body. So she's she's a very cute tiny mutt, basically, because she's a Maltese mix. So yeah, she's a lot of fun though. She's sassy, sassy as can be. But she just likes to nap in sunny spots usually. Like she finds a sunny spot and is like, I'll just lay here and nap in the sunshine. Yeah. And she's very picky about food and she hates going outside for any reason whatsoever.
Really? Okay.
Yes, she's a very, very odd dog. Scotty is more normal, typical dog. Like he likes to bark at squirrels and loves being outside and is like, walk me at all times. And it's like, treat. So he's much more stereotypical dog. All righty. So, do you guys ever do like family costumes that you guys all like dress up together?
We have in the past. This is the
Yeah,
first year that we weren't a family.
that's
Last
okay.
year we were all ninjas and
Oh, cool. Yeah. Yeah, I
Batman.
think that's always fun when I see like the whole family matches. I think that's really cute.
Yeah. This is the
So,
we actually missed an opportunity. Somebody mentioned like, Caleb should have been little Michael Jackson. We would have had
mm,
like Jackson 5 Michael Jackson. I
yeah.
was Thriller Michael Jackson, and then my husband was like the black and white Michael Jackson.
Nice. I love it. Oh,
It would
that
have
that
been
would have been
great.
cute. Yeah, like Jackson 5 days. Yeah, that would have been really cute. Hey, that's okay. You can save it and use it in a few years, right?
Exactly.
Just recycle
There'll be
it.
a costume party or something.
Yeah. I will say, I feel like Thriller Michael Jackson is pretty cool. I bet that was a really fun costume.
Yeah, I had like the eyes, and
Yes.
that was good. It
I
turned
love it.
out
Did
well.
you do the dance?
I did break it out a little bit.
Yeah.
The people were like, "Thriller," and I'm like, "Yeah."
That's fun. Yeah. Oh, very cool. That's very fun. All right. So, what do you think might be fun to work on today? Do you have maybe a certain character type or an emotion you want to work on, or a certain kind of script, like um, dialogue with narration mixed in? What do you think?
Ooh, I what is this dialogue with narration? That sounds
Yeah. So, like narrating in the fiction world, a lot of the time you'll have a character speak as well, and then you have to be the character. So, one that I feel like is pretty common, I feel like there are just so many books like this out there where it's like the romantic comedy and you have like the guy and the girl. And so you'll have to do conversations back and forth with them, or they'll have chapters that switch off from the guy and the girl perspective. And sometimes they'll actually have two different narrators, but sometimes they'll actually have the same person do the whole book. And so if that's the case, then you have to play both characters. Usually, what I do, just for the sake of vocal stamina, if I am doing both the guy and girl chapters, I'll do the narrator in just my normal voice all the time. And then I'll try to create a character voice for the actual characters. That way I don't have to fatigue quite as much. The narrator has the bulk of the talking. And then usually those are the primary characters, so I try to make them, decently accessible. And then for the characters that are just there for a short amount of time, I can do things that are a little bit more vocally challenging or fatiguing. Not necessarily straining, but just that they take more effort and a little more energy here, and you tire out a little bit faster. I don't want to have to narrate an entire book with a character voice that's very challenging. But I thought that might be a good challenge for you to play with, working on a script that has some narration but has some character voices. And one of the easier ways to start that, I think, is usually with a children's book that has character voices in it, where you can have like the cat in the hat talking, and then you have some narration where you've got characters mixed in, but it's usually a little bit simplified dialogue and shorter phrases because they're made for kids, so they're learning to read as they're reading these books. So I think that's a great place to start with doing some of that dialogue and narrator combination where you're kind of switching back and forth. I have worked on projects where they'll say, okay, I'm just going to have you record all of the character lines for this one character,
yeah. That's what I
finish
was just
that.
about to ask you.
Yeah, yeah. But if, let's say, you're hired to do a children's story anthology and you're doing the entire thing, if you're able to do it where you can kind of like switch back and forth, it just makes the editing process a lot easier. So it definitely is easier vocally to record all of one voice, all of another, all of another. But then that makes the editing a little bit more complicated. So even if you like pause in between or you say the line a few times, I find the editing easier if I can record it in order. So it kind of like you'll invest the time practicing and getting like really ready for the recording in order, or you'll invest the time in the editing later, and the editing is less fun for me. So I like to invest the time in really honing those voices myself. Um, so do you have any children's books that we could use, or would you like me to give you a script to use?
We have, of course, we have children's books.
Yeah, I figured you probably have some.
We definitely. I'm
Yeah,
just thinking, um, what maybe like, yeah. 1 second.
sure, no problem. Yeah, I figured with you picking a book that you already have too, you probably have read it a little bit out loud already. And so it might be good to have one that's a little more familiar, diving in for this first time playing around with this.
Well,
So let's
I chose kind of an
a
in
new
between
one.
book. Yeah.
Okay.
So I
Oh, nice. Oh, this will be a fun one, and it's very seasonally appropriate. I love it. Okay, so and that's I'm sure going to have some really fun dialogue in there. So let's find a section where you have some dialogue between characters actually speaking lines, and so it can be really any character. So we can use a little bit of the character voices that we've been working on, and then we can also do a little bit of work with narration. So I think this is a really great way to practice a variety of things. And this too will be more comedic, which I think will be fun as well, because some of what we've done has been a little bit more, dramatic or serious toned. So yeah, I think this will be good. Getting that comedic timing it can be tricky sometimes.
also I'm just not funny. I'm not,
Oh, I don't think I'm very funny either. I feel like people find me the most funny when I'm serious. Like I'll be like actually complaining about getting stuck in traffic and then everyone thinks it's
that's the
hilarious.
funniest.
Maybe just because it's so relatable.
I would love to be funny. I'm just not. I didn't get that gene.
Yeah, my little brother is very funny, but I am not very funny, I feel like. Alrighty. Did you find a section with some character dialogue?
Yes.
Okay.
Uh,
So why don't we pick just one line that a character has that we're going to start with? So find one line that we can take a look at to begin. And who is that character? What's going on in this situation? What do we know about this character?
well, this is a grandmother,
Okay.
and she's basically gonna explain, I guess, how to recognize a witch.
Okay. So is it more like cautionary, like life lesson, warning, sort of like the grandma in, well, I guess it wouldn't be the grandma, it would be the mom in like Little Red Riding Hood being like, hey, look out for wolves kind of thing, that it's more cautionary, like, hey, be careful in the woods kind of a feeling. Um, and or is it, I mean, I feel like you could be just kind of entertaining with a story that it's like, spooky around the fire at camp kind of thing. Or do you feel like it is more of that cautionary sort of vibe?
Um, I mean, book wise, I think it is more of a cautionary tale, but I think it could be read either way.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so then it's a grandmotherly character. So, how would you describe characters' voices that you hear when it's an older grandmotherly character? What are some things that you usually hear in the voice for those elderly characters?
No, there's something about elderly voices that have like a little bit of like a, I don't know, vocal fry. I don't know,
Yeah.
something kind of going on in there.
hmm I agree. Yeah, that's a good one to pinpoint. A little bit more like gravelly vocal fry, so like more at that well, Sonny, they incorporate some of this in there. It's a little crackly. And that's partially because as we get older, our vocal folds thin. And so we get a little bit more of that kind of sound. Sometimes people will have a little bit of a wobble in their voice that it gets a little bit shaky. Um, Sometimes we get kind of a creakiness in the voice or like that kind of smoker feeling. Um, I think sometimes you hear kind of like a warmer, hooty kind of a sound with elderly characters at times. Think like an Angela Lansbury would be like a little bit warmer, but a little bit like more back here kind of a feeling. Woo, woo, like that kind of space. Um, And it really can vary for the character. For this particular character, though, what would you guess as far as, what we know about her? Would she be more of like the energetic, spry kind of elderly woman, like the older lady and wedding singer who's like the hip hop, a hip hip hop lady? Or is she gonna be more of like the grouchy, grumbly neighbor lady who's like, get off my lawn? So how would you think that she's going to sound?
Um, I mean, this is more about the fact that I don't have any a grandmother sounding voice, but
Yeah,
I don't know. Like, I would say I might try to be more of like what I would call like an African American grandmother, kind of
sure, yeah.
a little bit warm, but a little bit like I'm explaining this to you, and it's important that you remember this because
Yeah.
it's my job to tell, like, it's my job to explain this to you. And
Yeah, so a little bit of that like real talk.
yeah,
Like, okay, like I am your grandma, I'm warm, I'm loving, but real talk, here's how it is, and this is important, listen up. And she could be a little bit sassy, she could be, a little bit irritated, maybe her grandkids aren't listening, so she's like, hey, focus, this is important. So I think you could do a lot of different things. It could be kind of like a Medea kind of sound. You can kind of pull from inspiration. Um, thinking of how would different actresses that find inspiring, how would they play this? So yeah, I think that works great where it's kind of that balance of a mixture of different things. Um, and I think that that is totally appropriate, that she could be very warm and loving, but also like, hey, you need to listen up because this is important and we need to keep you safe out there. So like maybe her grandkids are about to go trick or treating and she's like, hey, you got to stay safe out there. There are witches out there. Oh, don't laugh about this. This is serious,
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So why don't we try at least, one line? You can try more than that if you want, but let's try to kind of perfect a small section of this dialogue here. So first, why don't we try it just in your regular voice and just kind of getting the words in your mouth, wrapping your mouth around that pattern of words and the phrasing. And then we'll explore that a little bit more and sort of pick it apart a bit more.
Okay. Tonight, the old woman said, I'm going to tell you how to recognize a witch when you see one.
Nice. Good. Yeah, that's perfect. All right. So, what do you think could have happened right before this? Like, what could someone else have said, or what could have happened, like, where the kid's like, yay, Grandma, we're leaving. And she's like, hey, hold up 1 second. I have something important to tell you before you go. Or is it like, oh, there's, someone, maybe they just moved here. Her grandkids did. And, this grandmother knows there's a witch who lives on the edge of the woods. And she's like, hey, I need to tell you about something before you go because I want you to be safe. Or is it like one of the grandkids is like, oh, grandma, witches aren't real. And she's like, let me tell you something right here, young man. Yes, they are. All right. So, what could be the thing that you are responding to?
I feel like in this story, she has a plan to. I'm just telling you, like, from the story perspective,
Yeah.
that she has a plan to teach
Yeah.
this child has come of age.
Sure.
It's now time to
Mm,
explain these things so that they could be aware of the fact
yeah.
that there's all these crazy witches around.
Right. Like maybe before you were a little too young and now you're old enough. So maybe they like just had a birthday. They just became an age where she's like, I think you're mature enough now that you can know this. Maybe their family like holds these secrets and she knows that there are witches out there. She's like, I know that the world says that it's all made up, but it's not. And she's like, at Halloween, it's all fun and games, but in reality, you got to be careful out there, right? So, yeah, I like that because then too, it's like it's a little bit more respectful as well. And I feel like too, part of what makes these so compelling is that different people have different takes. Different people are going to read it differently. So I think, finding a way to
Make it your own.
tell the story, yeah, make it your own and tell the story in a way where you feel like you can authentically connect to it and portray that is so important. So I always love to see like unique takes on things that it's maybe not, just at face value or the first instinct, but like really considering how the book is written and like if you were that grandmother, how you would say it. And having that authenticity, I think, is so great. So let's have you try it again with that kind of take where you're like, all right, you're old enough now that I need to tell you something really important. So I need you to listen. So it's a little bit more serious.
Tonight, the old woman said, I'm going to tell you how to recognize a witch when you see
Nice. I really like too how you stressed and emphasized which, and you made that like the spotlight, the focus of that entire chunk there. That was really nice. And two, it really feels like it's a new thought. Like you guys haven't been talking about witches ahead. It's like shock, it's like the first time it's mentioned, and it really feels like the story is unfolding right before our eyes, like in the moment. It doesn't feel like you knew ahead of time what was coming. It's like we're all living the story all at once together, which I thought was a really nice effect. So then let's try incorporating. Um, how do you think your character feels about witches?
I think that she feels like they are a evil element,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
that's this is more of like a cautionary tale. Like I'm explaining this to you because you need to know because these are bad people.
Hmm. Right. Yeah. These are bad people, and I want you to be safe. Yeah, exactly. Very good. So then it has a little more gravity to it. And with that, I think having her voice be like warm, maybe a little lower pitched, and with that kind of gravelly element that you were mentioning, that rah, 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 like, listen up here, I got something to tell you. A little bit of that quality I think could be kind of fun to play with. So why don't we try incorporating some of that? Why don't we do a sigh down and kind of find that lower, deeper space? So, oh,
Oh.
yeah, yeah. You feel the difference there? And then can I have you do a yawn so you feel a little more of a stretch back here? Opening up.
I've definitely got some yawns.
Yeah, good. Can we try going, aha?
Oh,
Yeah, good. So then try, oh no.
oh no.
Good. Yeah. So incorporating some of that open palette space, that'll help it have a warmer tone. And then also incorporating that kind of gravelly vocal fry. So it's a stretch side to side to the point where it's kind of like, it's kind of using that extreme stretch side to side to get that kind of gravelly sound. All right. So let's try that again on the phrase that you're practicing here.
Tonight, the old woman said, I'm going to tell you how to recognize a witch when you see one.
Yes. Oh, I like that. She also sounds like kind of proud, like regal, um like a woman who wears a hat to church on Sunday. She sounds kind of like, the attitude of like the grandma in Downton Abbey or something where she's very proud and she's always dressed very nicely and she's like this is what's expected or like just like one of those grandmothers who's like, I am kind of the head of the family and I have wisdom to to give to you, to transfer to my, you know, my offspring and their offspring. And it's a family thing that we take pride in this, and this knowledge has been passed down. So I feel like she has a little bit of that to her, that she's very like proud, and she's wise and she's experienced life and she has important things to share. And so that's kind of coming across, which I think is great. um, and it's like, she's saying, I'm telling you this because I care about you and I know how the world works. So I think that's coming across really nicely, very nice. And I think that leaning a little more into, you were doing it already, but going even farther with her speech patterns, like the patterns as far as the phrasing, the accents, they can be a little bit different than your default phrasing or default patterns, because we can just thinking of things like, is she going to have more of like a flowy sort of phrasing? Is she going to be a little more like punchy with her speaking? Is she going to have maybe a cleaner, crisper diction? So things that make her speech different than yours. Does she talk a little bit faster, a little bit slower than you do? So that you have a little more contrast with you as the narrator and then her as the character. Yeah. So what do you think? What would you say would be some of the differences we can give to her?
Um, Maybe I would say slower because she's older.
Yeah.
I think it would be the easiest to remember.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to slow her down a little bit. I did notice you already were giving her a little bit more like crisp diction. And she had kind of like strong accents on like stresses of the words or just words in general that were more important. So keeping those elements too, I think will help her to stay more contrasting. So let's try it one more time.
Tonight, the old woman said, I'm going to tell you how to recognize a witch when you see one.
I like it. Yeah. I also felt like um you have a little bit more of like a flow, and then with her, I think because of the slowing down, it's little, and the diction, it's a little more like word, word, word. And so it's a little less of like the flow where it all just like seamlessly flows together, almost like a sung speech. Like your speech as the narrator felt a little more flowing, and hers felt not really choppy, but a little more precise with each word, I would say, which I thought was working really well. Um, I also like the pauses. It gives it a little more drama, and it emphasizes the next thing because we're like, ooh, what are you going to say next? Right? So it gets us a little bit like, what tonight? What? What's going to happen tonight? So I think that works really nicely. I like that a lot. So what did you like about that take? I thought it was really nice. I thought it was the best so far.
Mm, I think I need to slow it down a bit
Sure,
more.
even more. Yeah.
Yeah, it is I just need to get used to speaking in my regular voice in between.
Yeah.
think I probably sound choppy because I'm purposefully trying to make a difference between my regular speaking voice
Mm.
and the woman. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't have much positive to say about it. I feel like I could do better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. So let's just try it again, because it sounds like you want to slow it down even more. There are a couple things you maybe wish you had done a little bit differently. So let's just try it again and incorporate those elements. Sometimes it's just a matter of doing it multiple times, and then you just kind of tweak it a little bit more, a little bit more. So let's try it again.
And I've also like never thought about trying to play an old woman. So
Right.
I just
Yeah.
feel like it's just yeah, just have
And
to
you
let
never know. I just did a project where I played the grandma of the main character. It was a tribute project, like a new media for a YouTube sort of like documentary radio drama type thing, a tribute to an artist from Europe. And I played his grandma. That's what they cast me as. And I was like, okay. And I weirdly play lots of like children boy characters. So you just never know. I was like, oh, that's a little odd, but I weirdly get hired for a lot of those. So you just never know what you're gonna be asked to play. So, they actually had me do a couple other smaller little snippets throughout as well, like a neighbor lady and stuff. But the thing that they had me audition for and hired me for was the grandma originally. So I was like, alrighty, there we go. So
do
you
not
just
have a
never
grandmother
know.
sounding voice.
Yeah. So now yeah, exactly. You can like put it in your tool belt, put it in your shelf of different voices you have prepared and ready to go, right? So let's go ahead and let's try it again.
Tonight, the old woman said, I'm going to tell you how to recognize a witch when you see one.
Nice. Woo! Yes, it sounded like a little bit more ominous to me. Like it's like it just felt like there'd be like dark and flickering candles and like ominous music in the background. So it felt a little more like dun, 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 like Halloween movie for Disney Channel or something. I love it. Awesome, very good. So what did you feel like improved that time?
Um, I don't know. I think the tone wasn't too terrible. I like being a little bit deeper for her, and then
Yeah.
um,
I liked it too. I like it. I think that's what made it feel a little more like daunting or spooky or like ominous is that depth of her voice. Yeah, that was really nice. Awesome. Good. Is there anything you would want to change about it, or did you like that?
um, for whatever reason, I'm saying the words and I just don't slow down. I don't
Oh,
know. I
you
just
know,
don't. I
I
don't know.
think that you're changing enough other elements that it's okay. There's enough other stuff that makes the voice really contrasting to your regular narration voice. So I think that's okay because it definitely sounds contrasting. So it's not necessarily that all of these things have to be different, like warm and bright, fast and slow, high pitched, low pitched. We don't have to change all of the things. It just has to be enough differences that the listener can quickly identify that, oh, that's a different person. That's not the narrator here. It just definitely sounds like a shift happened. So, yeah, awesome.
It's
So,
more
I,
just that I wanted to, and then I'm not.
yes.
I mean, I'm not in control because
Mm.
I wanted to and I didn't. That's all.
Let's try this. I think one trick you can use to slow down without thinking, go slower, is to think about the last syllable, the final syllable of each word. Make sure that syllable is clear. You'll automatically start slowing down a little bit. So let's focus on the final syllable of each word we're going to make very clear.
Okay. Tonight, the old woman said, I'm going to tell you how to recognize a witch when you see
Yes, very good. All right, now I'm going to have you think about it a slightly different way, and we'll see which method you like better. This time, I want you to think about elongating the vowels. So, tonight, right? So, think of just like a little longer vowels. I'm going to tell you a secret about witches. So, you just
one.
sort of elongate, like stretch the vowels a little bit. Think like taffy stretching on the vowels. Yeah, let's try that.
Tonight, the old woman said, I'm going to tell you how to recognize a witch when you see one.
Yeah, so they each have a little bit of a different character to them. Which was your favorite? The one where you think about the final consonant or the stretching of the vowel?
think I have the stretching.
Okay, nice. All right, good. So, I think she sounded a little bit more, um, maybe nurturing is the word with that one. Like she sounds warmer to me with that one. She sounded a little more like stern and strict with the one where you thought about the final sounds of each word. So yeah, I think she has more of that like warm, caring, nurturing grandmotherly sound. Like she still sounds like this is important and it's a warning, but she has a little bit more of that compassionate kind of feeling where she's like, I care about you rather than like, I'm scolding you, children, kind of a sound. So I think that it gave more of the vibe that you were wanting for that grandmother, that she is warm, she is compassionate, she does really care about her grandchildren. So that I think came through more with that version of her. Awesome. Good. All right. So let's try it one more time. And I want you to try adding a little bit of maybe like the wobbly quality, like the shake, where like an elderly person loses a little bit of muscular control. So there's a little bit of a shake in the voice. You're like, all right, we'll try it. We'll see what happens.
Tonight. I'm sorry, that
And
was
if you over exaggerate it a little bit, that's okay because you'll start to get that feeling a little bit, and then we can try it, with a little bit less. So kind of like we're trying to get to here. We're here right now. We're kind of aiming over here so that we hopefully can end up in the middle. So try over exaggerating it. Tonight. Oh, I think we froze a little bit. Hopefully it clears up in a second. Oh no, it was going so well. Let me check. Everything looks okay. Rats. Oh. Oh, there we go. Sorry, we were frozen there for a minute. I was checking some things. I was like, oh man, it was going so beautifully. And then you were just frozen. All right. So, what I was saying is let's try sort of exaggerating the wobble. So let's try like a ghost. Try going for me. Ooh.
Ooh,
Yes, exactly. So
night,
incorporating that, a little bit of that, like a sprinkling of that into the voice.
night, the old woman said. I'm going to tell you how to recognize a witch when you see one.
Good. So now we're gonna tone that down a little bit. So we're gonna incorporate a little bit of it, but not quite as much. Tonight, I'm going to tell you. So like maybe you have like moments where you incorporate it and then like moments where you put a little bit of the like gravelly, crunchy kind of feeling. So it can change. So maybe it's just like a sprinkling of it here and there.
Tonight, the old woman said, I'm going to tell you how to recognize a witch when you see one.
Yeah, that I think was really nice because we had a little bit of the vocal fry. We had a little bit of the kind of like creaky, scratchy kind of sound. We had a little bit of the shake in there as well. So I thought that was really nice that it doesn't feel over exaggerated because it's different throughout. It's always changing and it sounds like what it could actually sound like. Because I feel like elderly people too, they don't have no control. It's just like they'll have moments where they kind of lose the muscular control for a moment. And so it'll be wobbly just for a moment and then they'll kind of like catch it again. So I thought that worked really nicely. So I feel like just continuing to practice that. And I think you can play with different types of elderly characters too. You could do the grandma when they're all going to church, when she's dropping them off at school, when she goes to see them in a play. You can have when she's, making them Christmas dinner, all kinds of different sorts of emotions like happy, sad, like their mom is sick in the hospital and she's comforting them, or, that they're nervous. Like she's like, oh, I think your grandpa maybe is having a heart attack. Call 911, and she's like scared. You can do different types of scenes. You could do different types of characters. So like one could be a little more like maybe she's starting to get dementia and is more childlike. You could have one that's more like the family matriarch, like holding it all together. You can do different types of personalities too. So I think it would be fun this week to play with, because you mentioned having not really created elderly voices. I think it could be fun to play with. And, maybe it could be as simple as this week, read out loud from this book at bedtime, and then you can be practicing just as part of everyday life. And it just sort of fits into regular life, and then you don't have to set aside lots of extra practice. It's like, oh, I can just sort of incorporate it into regular bedtime reading time and that kind of thing. So yeah, that was really nice. What was maybe your favorite thing about it? What was maybe something that was really fun about experimenting with this character voice?
I think I liked that it was hard.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it was more of a challenge than some of the others we worked on. So what made it especially challenging?
I think it kind of comes down to a couple of things. It's like I realize that sometimes if I feel like I'm going to sound stupid, I think I kind of freeze up, and so I have to kind of get
Yeah.
over that. So it just kind of like reminds me of the first time we went through the vocal lesson.
Yeah.
But I think it's just because I haven't really done this, so it's more like just tells me that I need to practice.
Yeah, right. And I totally get that feeling of, oh, I'm gonna sound silly, but the thing is, it's acting is such a sense of play to it. We have to get to where we're willing to try something, and where we're willing to look silly or look stupid or fall on our face and fail. And it's like, I'm going to try to make this sound and we'll see what happens. And finding that ability to find that sense of play and exploration, just like, you watch little kids and they're playing games, they're using their imagination. They're not scared. I look at my little nephew who's 2 years old, and I think about him learning to sit up and him learning to crawl and him learning to stand, him learning to walk. And now he just zips around like zooms. And it's funny because, he'll like fall and he'll be like, ow, that hurt. Ah. And then he's like, okay, I'm fine. And then he just starts zooming around again. And it's that ability to just bounce back and go, oh, I didn't do that right. I fell on my booty and it wasn't fun. And then he's like, ouch, that hurt. Mom, kiss me and make it better. And then he's like, okay, I feel better. I'm gonna try to stand and walk and run again. And it's okay that he failed, and he's not embarrassed of it. He's just like, all right, well, back to it. And so being brave enough to try different things and being brave enough to fall down and to, make weird sounds and to be like, oh, that didn't work. I feel like I've even had moments where I'm practicing totally on my own and I'm like embarrassed to myself. I'm like, oh, that was not what I wanted to come out of my mouth. But I feel like we judge ourselves so harshly, but you're learning something brand new. Like you said, you've never created a character voice like this before. So it's like, why would you know how to do it when you've never done it before? So especially when you're trying something brand new that you haven't done, just being willing to try something and be silly. And try to have fun with it and be like, okay, I'm just gonna let myself sound silly for a minute here?
Oh no, for sure. It's more just I realize like I don't know. I don't play as much as I used to. I used to be a
Yeah.
lot freer of a person. Suddenly
Hmm.
I'm like very like, oh, concerned. I'm like, what is
Yeah.
it? I don't know where this comes from, but I
Hmm.
recognize that I'm doing it, and so I
Yeah.
will work on it. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's just an adulting thing. We just life gets hard and serious and we're like, We lose our ability to play. And I think also it's just like sometimes it can be kind of frowned upon, like you're not seen as cool the older you get when you lose, when you like are goofy at recess and things, and then people make fun of you. And I feel like it's just sort of trained out of us. But I see so much growth even with like adults who, do improv classes and things where they get that sense of playback. It helps them be creative, think outside the box. They get more comfortable interacting with people, with public speaking, with sales, with coming up with new ideas for marketing or different things, and being able to stretch yourself to think outside the box, to be willing to explore ideas, even if it's a terrible idea. That terrible idea might be the thing that launches you to a great idea that someone goes, okay, well, that's not going to work, but that gave me an idea. What if we piggyback off of this part and do this? And then someone else goes, oh, we could do that. And then what about this too? It's so being able to just like throw things out. It's like, oh, well, that would be silly and that wouldn't work. Oh, but that leads me to this thought, which might lead us to that. So I think just having the ability to try something new and let yourself explore things. It's kind of that idea where, like Edison with a light bulb going, I didn't fail. I know 1,000 things that don't work, which takes me closer to finding the thing that does, and so having more of that mindset, I think that as a voice actor, particularly when you're creating character voices, you have to be willing to be silly, especially if you're doing something like a children's book or a cartoon for kids. You have to be silly. So many of these characters are going to be silly. They're going to be over the top. They're going to be over dramatized, especially with comedy. It's going to be ridiculous at times, but that's part of the fun of it.
I agree.
Yeah. And I think that having kids too can really inspire you in that. So kind of like letting yourself interact with your kid and seeing how you can sort of play together and like be silly, and they're gonna love your character voices, and the sillier the better. So I think that can be a great way to sort of like ignite that creative fun side. I know you have to be mom, and be like, okay, I'm mom, so like I have to keep you safe and I have to feed you and I have to teach you things. But then also having those moments of play as well are so important in their development, but also can help you in your growth in this area too. So, yeah, awesome work today. That was great. I love seeing you stretch yourself. That was awesome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'll do some practicing.
Yeah, great. And I look forward to seeing you next week. I'll see you then. Bye,
All right.
Shamara.
See you next week.